In a world that constantly tells us to chase our dreams and focus on our goals, there's another often overlooked approach: defining and confronting our fears. While goal setting is important, fear can be the silent force that keeps us from achieving those ambitions. Stoic philosophy teaches us that understanding our fears and dealing with them directly can be more transformative than just focusing on the finish line. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. Fear is the hidden barrier to your goals. Have you ever set a goal but found yourself procrastinating or hesitating to take action? It's not always a lack of motivation, it's fear. Fear lurks beneath the surface, disguised as excuses or indecision. Whether it's fear of failure, rejection, or even success, unacknowledged fears hold you back from pursuing your goals with full force. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." Many people remain stagnant in their lives, not because they lack ambition, but because they allow fear to stop them from starting. For example, you might want to change careers, but the fear of instability or not being good enough could paralyze you. Defining these fears is the first step toward overcoming them. Naming your fears takes away their power. Once you clearly define your fears, you strip them of their mysterious power. Often we feel overwhelmed by vague anxieties because we haven't taken the time to name them. Stoicism teaches us to bring our fears into the light. What exactly are you afraid of? Losing money, failing in public, being judged? Once you identify your fear, you can start to deal with it rationally. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." By giving a name to your fear, you begin to realize that it is not as insurmountable as it feels. Take a moment and write down the fears that are preventing you from pursuing your goals. Once they're on paper, they lose some of their emotional weight. Visualizing the worst-case scenario brings perspective. Stoic philosophers practiced the premeditation of evils. They would imagine the worst-case scenario, not to dwell in negativity, but to put their fears into perspective. By visualizing the worst outcome, you can assess how bad it really is. Often the fears that seem crippling in your mind lose their sting when you confront them head-on. Tim Ferriss, entrepreneur and author, expanded on this practice with what he calls fear setting. In his TED Talk, Ferriss described writing down the worst possible outcomes of a decision and then asking, "What's the likelihood? How could I repair the damage if it happens?" Ferriss realized that even the worst-case scenarios were rarely catastrophic. For instance, if you're afraid of launching a new project, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? You might fail, but would it be catastrophic, or would you recover and learn? Most fears are exaggerated. Once you begin to assess your fears, you'll likely realize that most of them are far less likely to happen than you originally thought. Fear distorts reality, making unlikely outcomes seem inevitable. By defining your fears and evaluating their likelihood, you start to see that many of the things you're afraid of are highly improbable. Seneca wisely stated, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." If you're afraid of public speaking, for example, your fear may exaggerate the chances of completely freezing on stage. In reality, even if you stumble, it's unlikely to be as disastrous as you fear. Focusing on fear helps you plan solutions. When you define your fears, you're not just confronting them, you're also opening the door to solutions. Once you know what you're afraid of, you can prepare for it. Stoicism teaches us to take control of our responses to events, even if the events themselves are beyond our control. By understanding your fears, you can develop a strategy to mitigate them. Let's say you're afraid of losing money on a business venture. Once you've defined that fear, you can plan ways to minimize financial risks, such as starting small, creating a budget, or seeking mentorship. "He who is brave is free," wrote Seneca, reminding us that courage and clear thinking can free us from the paralysis that fear creates. Inaction costs more than failure. One of the most powerful lessons from Stoicism is the cost of inaction. We often focus so much on what could go wrong that we don't consider the consequences of doing nothing. What is the cost of not pursuing your goals? How will your life be if you let fear hold you back? The regret of missed opportunities can weigh far more heavily than the fear of failure. Tim Ferriss highlighted this point when he said, "Easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life." If you continually choose comfort and safety over risk, you might avoid failure, but you also miss out on the opportunity for growth. Consider the example of someone wanting to ask for a promotion. The fear of rejection might stop them, but the long-term cost of staying stagnant in their career could be much greater than a moment of discomfort. Fear is a catalyst for growth. What if fear was a sign that you're on the verge of growth? Stoicism teaches us that adversity and discomfort are necessary for personal development. When you feel fear, it's often because you're stepping outside your comfort zone, and that's where true progress happens. Instead of seeing fear as an obstacle, view it as a signal that you're moving towards something meaningful. Epictetus, a prominent Stoic, said, "Difficulties are what show men's character." The fear of starting a new business venture may be a sign that you're about to embark on a path of growth, learning, and self-discovery. Confronting fear builds courage. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the ability to act despite it. Stoicism teaches that each time you confront your fears, you become stronger. You build the muscle of resilience and courage. The more you define your fears and face them, the less control they have over you. Don't let your reflection on the whole sweep of life crush you. Don't fill your mind with all the bad things that might still happen. Stay focused on the present situation and ask yourself why it's so unbearable and can't be survived. As Marcus Aurelius said, every time you push through fear, whether it's by making a difficult decision or stepping into an uncomfortable situation, you build your capacity to handle even greater challenges. Defining fear makes you more decisive. When you let fear remain vague, it clouds your judgment and stalls decision-making. By defining your fears clearly, you can make decisions more easily. Stoicism encourages clarity of thought, and defining your fears helps you move from a state of hesitation to decisive action. Once you know exactly what you're up against, it's easier to plan, act, and move forward. If you're torn between staying in your current job or pursuing a passion, identifying the fears attached to each option can help you make a clearer, more informed decision. Your fears don't define you, your actions do. One of the most profound lessons from Stoicism is that our fears do not define us, our actions do. You are not the sum of your fears, you are the sum of how you choose to respond to them. By defining your fears and taking action despite them, you reclaim control over your life. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This echoes the Stoic belief that it's our responses, not external events, that shape our lives. Ultimately, facing your fears is an act of self-empowerment. Rather than being held hostage by the fear of failure, rejection, or the unknown, you take ownership of your decisions and move forward with purpose. Instead of just setting goals, define the fears that are keeping you from achieving them. Ask yourself, what am I truly afraid of? By confronting your fears with the wisdom of Stoicism and applying techniques like Tim Ferriss's fear setting, you turn obstacles into opportunities and fears into fuel for growth.